The notification lit up Elijah's unlocked phone at 11:47 p.m. I wasn't supposed to see it, but there it was, a message from our CFO. Fire Sienna the moment Singapore signs. We don't need her after that. My stomach dropped. 18 months of work. $2.1 billion in infrastructure deals, 7 trips to Singapore, relationships built from scratch. And they were going to discard me the second the ink dried. Harper, our junior analyst, brought in coffee. How did you get here? She asked, wide-eyed. I still feel invisible. I told her, you do excellent work. But I knew the truth. Excellence hadn't saved me. When Elijah returned, he clapped my shoulder. This deal's going to make history, Sienna. You've done incredible work. Incredible. And then you're done. Alone again, I reread the Singapore delegation's email. We look forward to working with you in the implementation phase. They trusted me, not Helix. And Helix planned to vanish me before signing. Something shifted. What if I didn't let them? I messaged Lydia Frost, my old colleague turned lawyer. Need legal advice. Absolute confidentiality. She called within seconds. I told her everything. Do you have personal contact with the Singapore team? She asked. Of course. They only want to work with me. Check your contract, she said. And don't do anything yet. Leverage works both ways, and you might have more than they realize. I stayed up all night digging through old files. Buried in my employment agreement was Section 7.3. Employee retains all rights to personal relationships and professional networks developed during employment. The Singapore relationship wasn't Helix's, it was mine. The notification lit up Elijah's unlocked phone at 11:47 p.m. I wasn't supposed to see it, but there it was, a message from our CFO. Fire Sienna the moment Singapore signs. We don't need her after that. My stomach dropped. 18 months of work. 7 trips to Singapore, custom clauses, late nights adapting to their culture, and they were tossing me the second the deal closed. Harper, our junior analyst, brought in coffee. How'd you get here? She asked, wide-eyed. I still feel invisible. I gave her the line I no longer believed. Just do excellent work. Elijah returned, cheerful. Tokyo's on board. Tomorrow's the big one. You've done incredible work. Incredible. And then you're done. Alone again, I reread the Singapore delegation's email. We look forward to working with you in the implementation phase. They didn't know Helix planned to vanish me. Something shifted. Pulled. Sharp. What if I didn't let them? I messaged Lydia Frost, my old colleague turned lawyer. Need legal advice. Confidential. She answered instantly. Call me. On the balcony, I told her everything. Do you have personal relationships with the Singapore team? She asked. Of course. They trust me, not Helix. Check your contract, she said. Don't do anything yet. Leverage works both ways, and you might have more than they think. I stayed up all night digging through old files. Buried in my employment agreement was Section 7.3. Employee retains all rights to personal relationships and professional networks developed during employment. The Singapore deal wasn't theirs. It was mine. Elijah's voice turned icy. You've made a serious mistake. Have I? You manipulated a client. This is grounds for legal action. Actually, I said calmly, Chairman Tan reached out to me directly. I was already separated from Helix by then. It wasn't technically true. My resignation was dated that day, but their lawyers would drown in timeline confusion before they proved otherwise. This isn't over, he warned. I think it is. I hung up before he could reply. That night I sat on the balcony with a glass of wine, Bangkok glittering below. For the first time in 18 months I could breathe. Lydia texted, so? How'd it go? I sent her a screenshot of the signed contract, with Catalyst Strategic Partners listed as lead advisor. Holy shit. You actually did it. We did it. What's next? I stared at the skyline. A company with no team, no office. Just an $89 million contract and a partner I trusted. I guess I figure out how to run a consulting firm. You'll need help. I know. I mean me. Partner. Warmth spread through my chest. Partner. When can you get to Singapore? 48 hours. 24 hours ago I was about to be fired. Now I own my future. Elijah and Graham thought they were cutting me loose after the deal closed. So I closed it under my own name instead. I should have felt guilty. I felt free. The next morning I booked a flight to Singapore and called my mom. I quit my job. I said. Oh honey, what happened? Nothing bad. I started my own company. She was quiet, then whispered, I'm so proud of you. You didn't let them make you small. Tears pricked my eyes. I learned from the best. On the flight, I drafted lists. What I needed, office, staff, systems. What I had, a massive contract, Lydia, and the client's trust. Then an email from Harper. If you ever need an analyst, I'd love to talk. I replied instantly. An hour later, she was on the phone, nervous. Maybe this is career suicide. Or the smartest move you'll ever make. I offered her a role. Senior analyst, equity stake, a chance to build something real. When do I start? 2 weeks. Can you keep it quiet? Absolutely. Thank you for seeing me. As the plane descended over Singapore's gleaming skyline, I knew I wasn't just launching a firm, that I was building a team of people the system had overlooked. And we were going to prove our worth together. And I was part of it. Not as someone's employee. As a partner. I grabbed my bags and headed toward customs. My phone buzzed with a message from Lydia. Landing tomorrow morning. Found us an office space. Small but good location. Sent you the details. I clicked the link. It was a modest suite in the financial district. 3 rooms with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the harbor. Not fancy but professional. Perfect, I replied. Let's take it. The customs officer stamped my passport with barely a glance. Purpose of visit? Business, I said. I'm opening a consulting firm here. He nodded, unimpressed. In Singapore, everyone was opening something. Welcome back. I collected my bags and headed toward the taxi stand, pulling up the address Lydia had sent. The office was 20 minutes from the airport, right in the heart of the business district. As the taxi wound through Singapore's efficient streets, I watched the city slide by. Modern buildings, pristine sidewalks, the kind of order and planning that most places only dreamed of. This was where I'd build Catalyst. Where I'd prove that betting on myself wasn't insanity, it was strategy. My phone buzzed. A known number, US area code. I answered cautiously. This is Sienna. Miss Clark. The voice was crisp, professional. My name is Rachel Winters. I'm an attorney with Sterling and Associates. I'm calling on behalf of Helix Industries regarding certain contractual matters. Here we go. I'm listening. My client has concerns about your involvement in the Singapore infrastructure project. They believe you may have violated confidentiality agreements and non-compete clauses in your employment contract. Kept my voice level. What specific violations are they claiming? That's what we're trying to determine. We'd like to schedule a meeting to discuss this matter before pursuing formal legal action. I appreciate the call, Ms. Winters. But I'm currently out of the country. Any formal complaints can be directed to my attorney, Lydia Frost. I'll have her contact information sent to you. When will you be returning to the States? I'm not certain. I'm based in Singapore now. Pause. I see. And you're comfortable conducting business there while these matters remain unresolved? I'm comfortable conducting business where my clients are located. If Helix wishes to pursue legal action, they're welcome to do so. But I'd suggest they review my employment contract carefully first, particularly Section 7.3. Another pause. I'll relay that to my client. Expect to hear from us again. After she hung up, I texted Lydia. Helix's lawyers just called. They're fishing. Her response came quickly. Let them fish. We've got everything documented. They won't find anything. I hoped she was right. But even if she wasn't, I'd made my choice. There was no going back now. The taxi pulled up to a sleek high-rise in the Shenton Way district. The office Lydia had found was on the 14th floor. I paid the driver and headed inside, dragging my roller bag behind me. The lobby was all marble and glass, the kind of place that made you want to dress better. I checked in with security and headed up. The office suite was exactly as advertised, small but professional. The main room had space for desks and a meeting area. One of the smaller rooms could be mine, the other Lydia's. The windows looked out over Marina Bay, where ships moved steadily in and out of port. I stood at those windows for a long time watching the city work. Somewhere out there, crews were building, planning, implementing. And I was going to be part of it. My phone rang. Termination. Miss Clark, welcome to Singapore. I trust you've recovered from your illness. I smiled. Fully, thank you. Excellent. I wanted to invite you to a meeting next week. The full infrastructure committee would like to discuss implementation timelines. Your presence would be valuable. I'd be honored to attend. Also, I took the liberty of mentioning your firm to several colleagues in the region. There's significant interest in infrastructure consulting. You may receive some inquiries. My heart jumped. That's very generous, Chairman. It's practical. Good partnerships should be maintained. I look forward to our continued collaboration. After we hung up, I texted Lydia. Chairman Tan is referring clients to us. Before we've even opened? That's a good sign. A very good sign. I spent the rest of the evening setting up the office. Unpacking the few supplies I'd brought, connecting to Wi-Fi, testing the conference room setup. It was basic, but it was mine. At some point I realized I was smiling. Actually smiling, alone in an empty office halfway around the world from everything familiar. I'd taken the biggest risk of my life. I'd burned bridges, maneuvered clients, and started a company with barely any preparation. And somehow, against all odds, it was working. My phone buzzed. An email from Helix's HR department. Subject: Termination of employment. Dear Ms. Clark, this letter serves as formal notification that your employment with Helix Industries has been terminated effective immediately, based on your submitted resignation. Your final paycheck will be processed according to company policy. Please return all company property within 5 business days. I read it twice, then deleted it. They wanted their property back? Fine. The laptop I'd used was in Bangkok, I'd ship it to them. But everything else, every relationship, every strategy, every bit of knowledge in my head, that was mine. They couldn't take that back. I pulled up a blank document and started drafting a business plan. Not because I needed to, I already had a contract. But because if I was going to do this, I was going to do it right. Catalyst Strategic Partners wouldn't just be a consulting firm. It would be proof that talent didn't need permission to succeed. That being underestimated was sometimes an advantage. That the people they tried to erase could build something better on their own. I worked until well past midnight, filling pages with ideas, strategies, projections. When I finally stopped, my shoulders ached and my eyes burned. But I felt alive in a way I hadn't in years. I grabbed my coat and headed down to the street. Singapore at night was quieter than Bangkok, more ordered. The streets were clean, the lights precise. I walked without direction, letting my feet carry me toward the harbor. At the waterfront, I stopped and looked out at the water. Ships moved silently in the darkness, carrying goods to and from one of the world's busiest ports. Each one representing millions of dollars in commerce, thousands of decisions, countless hours of planning. And I was part of that now. Not as a cog in someone else's machine, but as an architect of my own path. My phone rang. Lydia, despite the late hour. You awake? She asked. Barely. Good. I've been thinking about staffing. We need more than just you, me, and Harper. I know. But hiring takes time. What if we didn't hire? What if we partnered? I frowned. With who? I know 3 excellent consultants who left major firms in the last year. All of them got tired of the politics and bureaucracy. What if we brought them in as partners instead of employees? Equity stakes, distributed decision-making, that kind of thing. That's unconventional. So is everything else we're doing. Think about it. We build a collective of top talent, all of us with skin in the game. No hierarchy, no backstabbing. Just good work and shared success. I leaned against the harbor railing, considering. It was risky. More voices meant more opinions, potentially more conflict. But it also meant more expertise, more networks, more capability. Tell me about these consultants, I said. Lydia spent the next 20 minutes describing each person. Infrastructure specialists, project managers, financial analysts. All of them had left promising careers because they'd seen what I'd seen. That talent alone wasn't enough in traditional corporate structures. Let me meet them, I said finally. If they're as good as you say, let's make the offer. I'll set it up for next week. After we hung up, I stayed at the harbor a while longer. The ships kept moving, the city kept humming. And somewhere in that endless motion I was finding my place. 2 days later, Lydia arrived in Singapore. I met her at the airport and we hugged like soldiers returning from different fronts of the same war. You look different, she said, studying my face. Different how? Lighter. Like you've been carrying something heavy and finally put it down. She wasn't wrong. I felt unburdened in a way I hadn't expected. The stress of Helix, the constant need to prove myself, the politics, the anticipation of betrayal, all of it had lifted. We drove to the office together and I watched her face as she saw it for the first time. "It's perfect," she said. "Small enough to stay nimble, professional enough to be taken seriously." Over the next week we turned that empty suite into a functioning business. Desks, computers, a coffee maker that actually worked. Harper arrived the following Monday, wide-eyed and excited. She walked into the office carrying a single suitcase and a laptop bag, looking around like she'd stepped into a dream. "I can't believe I'm actually here," she said. "I gave my notice on Friday." Elijah looked like he wanted to throw his phone at me. I laughed. "How did HR take it?" "They tried to counteroffer. Said I was making a mistake leaving for an unproven startup. I told them I'd rather build something new than watch talented people get erased." Lydia glanced at me. "She's going to fit in just fine." That afternoon we held our first official team meeting. 3 people in an office meant for 10, sitting around a table we'd assembled ourselves that morning. "All right," I said, pulling up a presentation on my laptop. "Here's where we are. 1 major contract, several potential leads from Chairman Tan's referrals, and exactly 0 proven track record. Thoughts?" Harper raised her hand slightly. "Do we have a project management system set up yet?" "Not yet." "That's on you. Research options and come back with recommendations by Wednesday." Lydia jumped in. "I'm meeting with 3 potential partners next week. If even 2 of them sign on, we'll need to formalize our equity structure." "Already drafted," I said, sliding printed documents across the table. "Equal partnership shares for founding members. Weighted equity for later additions based on contribution and seniority. Everyone gets voting rights on major decisions." Harper looked down at the papers in front of her, then back up at me. "I get equity? I'm 24. You're here, aren't you? You took the risk. That's worth something." Her eyes got suspiciously bright. She nodded and looked back down at the documents. We spent the rest of the afternoon mapping out our first 90 days. Implementation plans for Singapore, outreach strategies for potential clients, financial projections that were equal parts hopeful and terrifying. At 6 p.m. my phone rang. Unknown number, London area code. I stepped into my private office to answer. "Sienna Clark." "Miss Clark, my name is Edmund Wright. I'm calling from Ashford Development Group in London. Chairman Tan suggested I reach out regarding a potential infrastructure project in Malaysia." I grabbed a pen. "I'm listening, Mr. Wright." "We're bidding on a transit modernization initiative in Kuala Lumpur. The project scope is similar to Singapore's, though smaller, roughly $400 million. We need strategic advisory support, particularly someone with regional expertise and proven client relationships." "When are you looking to begin?" "Ideally within the month. We'd want to meet in person first, naturally. Would you be available to fly to London next week?" I pulled up my calendar. "I can make that work. Send me the project brief and I'll review it before we meet." "Excellent. I'll have my assistant coordinate the details. Miss Clark, I should mention, we specifically requested someone with your background. Chairman Tan spoke very highly of your work." After he hung up, I walked back into the main office. Lydia and Harper looked up expectantly. "We just got a lead on a $400 million project in Malaysia," I said. Harper's eyes went wide. "We've been open for a week." Apparently, good news travels fast. I sat down trying to process it. "I need to fly to London next week." Lydia grinned. "This is happening. This is actually happening. Don't celebrate yet. We still need to deliver on Singapore first." But despite my caution, I felt it too. That electric sense that we'd caught something real, something with momentum. Over the next 2 weeks, the office transformed. Lydia's 3 potential partners all signed on. Cameron Hughes, an infrastructure specialist from Australia. Priya Mehta, a financial analyst who'd left a major firm in Mumbai. And Jackson Reed, a project manager with 15 years of experience across Asia. Each of them brought not just expertise but networks. Contacts at development banks, relationships with government officials, knowledge of regulatory environments across a dozen countries. We held our first full team meeting on a Thursday morning. 8 people crowded into our conference room, passing around coffee and pastries from the bakery downstairs. "All right," I said, standing at the head of the table. Let's talk about what we're building here. This isn't a traditional consulting firm. We're not trying to be McKinsey or Bain. We're something different. Cameron leaned forward. Different how? We're small enough to be flexible, experienced enough to be trusted, and structured so that everyone here has a stake in our success. No arbitrary hierarchies. No taking credit for other people's work. If you build a relationship, it's yours. If you close a deal, you own it. Priya spoke up, her accent crisp and precise. What about decision-making? With 8 partners, we could end up gridlocked. Good point, Lydia said. That's why we're implementing a tiered system. Day-to-day operations, individual partners have autonomy. Major strategic decisions, we vote. Tiebreakers go to whoever brought in the related client or project. Jackson nodded slowly. I've worked at 5 firms in my career. Every single one eventually became about politics instead of performance. How do we avoid that? Transparency, I said. Every contract, every fee structure, every equity distribution. It's all visible to everyone here. No backroom deals. No hidden agendas. There was a moment of silence as that sank in. Then Cameron smiled. When do we start? We already have, I said, pulling up a slide with our current projects. Singapore implementation begins next month. Malaysia bid is due in 3 weeks. And as of yesterday, we have inquiries from Vietnam and the Philippines. Harper's hand shot up. We have 4 major projects and 8 people. How are we going to manage the workload? Carefully, I admitted. Which is why we're not taking anything we can't deliver on. Quality over quantity. We turn down work if we can't do it right. Priya looked impressed. That's rare in this industry. So is treating talent like it matters, I said. We're going to do both. The meeting continued for another hour, dividing responsibilities and establishing communication protocols. By the end, we had a framework. Rough and untested but real. As everyone filed out, Lydia hung back. You know they're going to come after us, right? She said quietly. Helix won't let this go. Once we start winning more contracts, once we become a real threat, they'll escalate. I know. Are you ready for that? I thought about the message on Elijah's phone. Fire Sienna the moment Singapore signs. About the years of overlooked promotions and redirected credit. About building something only to watch someone else put their name on it. I'm ready, I said. Let them come. That evening I stayed late at the office working on the Malaysia proposal. The project was smaller than Singapore but more complex. Multiple stakeholders, tighter timelines, a government bureaucracy that was notoriously difficult to navigate. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. This is Graham Fletcher. We need to talk. I stared at the message for a long moment. Graham was Helix's CFO, the man who'd sent that original message to Elijah. The architect of my planned termination. I didn't respond. 3 minutes later, another text. I know you're angry. But what you're doing is going to hurt both of us. Let's find a resolution. I typed back. I'm not interested in resolution. I'm interested in building my business. Sienna, be reasonable. You can't compete with Helix. We have resources, connections, decades of reputation. This won't end well for you. Then you have nothing to worry about, I replied. Good luck with your future endeavors. I blocked the number and went back to work. At midnight, I finally closed my laptop and headed home. My apartment was a modest 1-bedroom in the Tiong Bahru neighborhood, quiet and residential. Nothing like the luxury places some consultants rented, but it was mine. I poured a glass of wine and stood at my window looking out at the sleeping city. Somewhere out there, Helix's leadership was probably strategizing about how to handle the Sienna problem. They were likely angry, maybe even scared. Good. They should be. My phone rang. I almost ignored it, then saw the name. Mom. Hey, I answered. It's late there. I couldn't sleep, she said. I keep thinking about you all the way over there starting this new venture. Are you okay? I'm good, Mom. Really good. Not lonely. I smiled. I've got a team now. 7 other people who took the same leap I did. We're building something. I'm so proud of you, baby. You know that, right? I know. Your father would have been proud too. My throat tightened. Dad had died when I was 15, a heart attack that came out of nowhere. He'd been a structural engineer, spent his whole life building things that would outlast him. Bridges, buildings, infrastructure that people used without thinking about who designed it. Yeah, I said softly. He would have liked this. Building something from the ground up. He always said the foundation matters most. You can't build anything lasting without a solid foundation. After we hung up, I thought about that. Foundations. I'd spent 4 years at Helix trying to build a foundation for my career. But I'd been building on someone else's ground with someone else's materials, according to someone else's blueprints. This time the foundation was mine. The next morning I flew to London for the Malaysia meeting. Edmund Wright met me at Ashford Development's offices in Canary Wharf, a gleaming tower with views across the Thames. "Miss Clark," he said, shaking my hand firmly. "Thank you for making the trip. I've read your Singapore proposal. Impressive work." "Thank you. I'm eager to hear more about the Kuala Lumpur project." He led me to a conference room where 3 other executives waited. For the next 2 hours, we discussed timelines, stakeholder requirements, budget constraints. They asked probing questions about my experience, my team's capabilities, my understanding of Malaysian infrastructure policy. I answered every question without hesitation. This was what I'd been doing for years, translating complex requirements into actionable strategies, navigating bureaucratic challenges, building consensus across diverse stakeholder groups. The only difference now was that I was doing it for myself. At the end of the meeting, Edmund walked me to the elevator. "We have 2 other firms we're considering, but I'll be honest. Your approach is the most sophisticated. I'll have a decision for you by end of week." "I appreciate the opportunity," I said. "One thing I should mention. Catalyst operates on a partnership model. If we take on your project, you won't just be hiring a consultant. You'll be getting an entire team of specialists, all with equity stakes in the outcome." He looked intrigued. "That's unusual. It's also effective. Everyone on my team has skin in the game. No one's just collecting a paycheck." "I like that," he said. "I'll factor it into our decision." Flying back to Singapore, I felt cautiously optimistic. The meeting had gone well. But I'd been in this business long enough to know that "went well" didn't always translate to "won the contract." I landed at Changi Airport at 6 a.m. local time and headed straight to the office. The team was already there. Apparently no one believed in normal business hours anymore. "How'd it go?" Lydia asked, handing me coffee. "Too early to tell. They're deciding by end of week." Cameron looked up from his laptop. "I've got news. The Vietnam inquiry turned into an actual RFP. They want a proposal by next month." "What's the scope?" I asked. "Port modernization. About $300 million. Heavy focus on automation and environmental sustainability." Priya jumped in. "I've been reviewing their current infrastructure. They've got serious capacity constraints. This project could transform their shipping capabilities." Jackson added, "I know 3 officials in their transportation ministry. Used to work with them on a World Bank project. I can make introductions." I looked around at this group of people who'd taken a chance on an unproven firm, who were working 18-hour days to prove we could deliver, who believed in the same thing I did, that talent and integrity could win. "All right," I said. "Let's go for it. Cameron, you lead the Vietnam proposal. Priya, support with financial modeling. Jackson, start working those relationships. Harper, project management and timeline coordination." "What about you?" Lydia asked. "I'm going to focus on Malaysia and making sure Singapore implementation stays on track. We can't chase every opportunity. We need to win the ones that matter and deliver excellence on the ones we have." Over the next 3 weeks, the office became controlled chaos. Conference calls with Kuala Lumpur, strategy sessions for Vietnam, implementation planning for Singapore. We brought in temporary staff for administrative support, but the core decisions stayed with the partners. True to his word, Edmund called on Friday. "Ms. Clark, Ashford would like to move forward with Catalyst as our strategic advisor on the Malaysia project. When can you start?" I pulled up our project calendar. "We can have a team on the ground in 2 weeks. But I want to set clear expectations. We don't cut corners. If timeline or budget constraints force us to compromise on quality, we'll tell you directly." "That's exactly why we chose you," he said. "We've worked with consultants who tell us what we want to hear. We'd prefer someone who tells us what we need to hear." After finalizing terms, I gathered the team. We just closed Malaysia. $400 million project, 18-month timeline. The room erupted in cheers. Harper actually jumped out of her chair. Even Lydia, normally reserved, was grinning. "This is real now," Cameron said. "We're not just a startup with one lucky break. We're actually doing this." "Don't celebrate too much," I warned. "Now comes the hard part, delivering. If we screw this up, no amount of good intentions will save us." Priya nodded seriously. "She's right. We need systems, processes, quality controls. We can't wing it anymore." "Agreed," I said. "Which is why we're hiring a dedicated operations manager. And before anyone says we can't afford it, yes, we can. We need infrastructure if we're going to scale." Over the next month, Catalyst transformed from a scrappy startup into something resembling an actual company. We hired an operations manager named Sophie Chin, a formidable woman who'd spent 20 years at major consulting firms and was tired of corporate politics. She brought structure to our chaos: project tracking systems, quality assurance protocols, client communication standards. The Singapore implementation launched on schedule. Chairman Tan sent a personal email commending our precision and attention to detail. More importantly, he copied it to 6 other government officials across Southeast Asia. The referrals started coming in steadily. Not all of them converted to projects, but enough did. By the end of our 3rd month, we had 5 active contracts and a pipeline of 8 more prospects. And then Helix made their move. I was in Kuala Lumpur meeting with the Malaysian Transportation Ministry when Lydia called, her voice tight. "Sienna, we have a problem." "What kind of problem?" "Helix just filed a formal lawsuit. They're claiming trade secret misappropriation and tortious interference with business relationships." I found a quiet corner of the ministry building. "Details." "They're alleging you stole proprietary information when you left and used it to undermine their existing client relationships. They're seeking damages of $50 million plus injunctive relief to prevent us from operating in Southeast Asia." My hands went cold. $50 million? We don't have that kind of money. "I know. That's the point. This is a strategic move to bankrupt us before we can establish ourselves." "Can they win?" "On the merits? Well, we have documentation showing everything we did was legal. But lawsuits aren't just about winning. They're about bleeding you dry with legal fees until you settle or fold." I leaned against the wall, thinking fast. What do we need? A damn good lawyer. And money for a retainer. This is going to get expensive. How expensive? 6 figures easily. Maybe more if it goes to trial. I closed my eyes. We had money in the bank from our contracts, but not unlimited amounts. A prolonged legal battle could destroy us even if we eventually won. "Find us the best lawyer you can," I said. "I don't care what it costs. We're not folding." "Sienna, maybe we should at least hear their settlement offer." "No. They tried to erase me. Now they're trying to intimidate me. I'm not giving them the satisfaction." After we hung up, I stood in that hallway for a long moment, feeling the weight of what I'd started. 8 people had hitched their careers to mine. They'd trusted me when I said we could build something different, something better. And now I'd dragged them into a legal war. My phone buzzed. "Harper. Just saw the news about the lawsuit. Whatever you decide, I'm with you." Then Cameron, "They're scared of us." "That's a good sign." "Priya. I've been through lawsuits before. We can survive this." "Jackson. My wife's a litigation attorney. Want me to ask her for recommendations?" One by one, every partner sent messages of support. Not one of them suggested backing down. I typed a group response. "Emergency meeting tonight. Video call at 8 p.m. Singapore time." That evening I sat in my hotel room in Kuala Lumpur, laptop open, looking at 8 faces on my screen. "You all saw the lawsuit," I said. "This is going to get ugly. Helix has deep pockets and a legal team that plays dirty. If anyone wants out, now's the time. No judgment, no hard feelings." Silence. Then Lydia spoke. "I didn't leave a comfortable job to run away from a fight." Cameron nodded. "I've seen this tactic before. Big firms trying to crush smaller competitors. Sometimes it works. But sometimes the little guy wins." "We have something they don't," Priya added. "We have the truth. And documentation to prove it." Jackson leaned closer to his camera. "My wife reviewed the complaint. She says it's aggressive but weak. Lots of allegations, thin on specifics. They're trying to intimidate us into settling. So what do? Harper asked. I took a breath. We fight. We hire the best legal team we can find. We document everything. And we keep delivering excellent work for our clients. We show the industry that Helix is attacking us because they're scared, not because we did anything wrong. That's going to cost money, Sophie pointed out. Money we need for operations. I know. Which is why we're going to be smart about it. We focus resources on the strongest projects, we defer expansion plans, and we prepare for a long battle. What about PR? Lydia asked. This lawsuit is going to be public. How do we control the narrative? Carefully. We don't trash talk Helix. We simply state the facts. We followed all legal requirements, we built relationships ethically, and we're providing valuable services to our clients. We let our work speak for itself. Over the next week we assembled our defense. Jackson's wife recommended a litigation firm in Singapore specializing in corporate disputes. The lead attorney, a sharp woman named Helena Kwan, reviewed our documentation and smiled. They don't have a case, she said. But that doesn't mean they won't make this painful. Be prepared for discovery requests, depositions, media attention. This is going to consume time and resources. How much? I asked. She named a figure that made my stomach drop. But I'd already decided, we weren't backing down. Do whatever you need to do, I told her. We win this properly. The lawsuit hit the industry press within days. Helix Industries sues former employee over alleged trade secret theft. The headlines made it sound like I'd stolen nuclear codes. But something unexpected happened. Instead of damaging our reputation, the lawsuit generated sympathy. Industry insiders who'd worked with me started speaking up. Chairman Tan issued a public statement. We engaged Catalyst strategic partners based on demonstrated expertise and relationship trust, not proprietary information. Any suggestion otherwise is unfounded. Edmund Wright from Ashford sent a similar message. Our decision to work with Ms. Clark was based on her proven capabilities and professional integrity. Even some former Helix employees began reaching out privately, sharing their own stories of being undervalued and discarded. One message stood out. It was from Daniel Torres, a senior strategist I'd worked with years ago at Helix. Fiona, I watched what they did to you. I'm not surprised they're trying this. But I want you to know, everyone here knows the Singapore deal was yours. Everyone knows you built those relationships. And a lot of us are rooting for you to win this. I read that message 3 times, feeling something crack open in my chest. I wasn't alone in this. The people who'd seen the truth were speaking up. Our legal response was filed 2 weeks later. It was surgical and devastating. Helena had compiled every email, every contract clause, every piece of documentation showing that I'd followed the law precisely. More than that, she'd included affidavits from clients confirming they'd chosen Catalyst based on demonstrated expertise, not any proprietary Helix information. The response also included a counterclaim for defamation and malicious prosecution. We were going on offense. Helix's lawyers responded with escalation. More discovery demands, more aggressive depositions, more attempts to paint me as a corporate thief. But with each escalation, more industry voices spoke up in our defense. The narrative wasn't going the way Helix had planned. 3 months into the lawsuit, something shifted. Helena called with news. Helix's legal team reached out. They want to discuss settlement. What kind of settlement? They're willing to drop the lawsuit if you agree to a mutual non-disparagement clause and stay out of 3 specific markets where they're currently bidding. Absolutely not, I said immediately. We didn't do anything wrong. Why would we restrict our business? Because lawsuits are expensive and unpredictable. Even if we win, it could take years. Then it takes years. I'm not giving them market exclusivity because they sued me. Helena was quiet for a moment. You know, most clients would jump at this offer. It's essentially vindication without the risk of trial. I'm not most clients. And this isn't about vindication. It's about principle. All right then. We reject the settlement and prepare for trial. That night, I sat with Lydia in our office long after everyone else had gone home. You could have taken the settlement, she said. No one would have blamed you. I would have blamed me. This is going to get worse before it gets better. You know that, right? I know. He studied my face. Why are you really doing this? And don't give me the principal's speech. What's driving this? I thought about how to answer that. About the years of being overlooked, the promotions that went to less qualified people, the credit stolen, the work erased. About every woman who'd been told to be grateful just to have a seat at the table. Because if I fold now, I'm telling every young professional out there that the big firms always win. That taking a stand isn't worth it. That you should just accept being undervalued because fighting back is too hard. And you think winning this lawsuit changes that? Maybe. Or maybe it just shows that sometimes the underdog has teeth. Lydia smiled. You know, when we started this, I thought you were a brilliant strategist. I didn't realize you were also crazy. One doesn't exclude the other. 6 months after the lawsuit was filed, we had our day in court. Not a full trial, just a hearing on Helix's motion for preliminary injunction to stop us from operating. Helena had prepared meticulously. She presented our documentation, our client testimonials, our clean legal trail. She dismantled Helix's arguments point by point. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s who'd probably seen every corporate warfare tactic imaginable, listened impassively. Then she spoke. I've reviewed the filings from both parties. While Helix Industries has made serious allegations, I see insufficient evidence to support immediate injunctive relief. The defendant appears to have established her business through legal means, utilizing personal relationships and expertise rather than misappropriated proprietary information. I felt Lydia's hand squeeze mine under the table. The judge continued. Motion for preliminary injunction is denied. This matter will proceed to discovery, but the defendant may continue operating without restriction. It wasn't a complete victory, the lawsuit would continue. But Helix had failed to shut us down. We could keep building. Outside the courthouse, reporters were waiting. Helena handled most questions with practiced non-answers. But one reporter called out directly to me. Ms. Clark, Helix claims you built your business by stealing theirs. What do you say to that? I paused. Helena had coached me to say nothing. But something in me snapped. I say that relationships aren't property, I said clearly. Expertise isn't theft. And building something better isn't a crime. I spent 4 years helping Helix succeed. When they decided I was disposable, I chose to build my own path. That's not stealing, that's entrepreneurship. The quote made headlines by evening. Catalyst founder, relationships aren't property. Our client pipeline exploded overnight. Apparently, there were a lot of talented people who'd been discarded by big firms, and they liked seeing someone fight back. Over the next year, the lawsuit dragged on. Discovery, depositions, motion after motion. It was exhausting and expensive. But we kept growing. New contracts, new partners, new markets. Catalyst went from 8 people to 25. From 5 contracts to 18. From 1 office to 3, Singapore, Kuala Lumpur, and Manila. We weren't just surviving. We were thriving. And then 18 months after it began, Helix's lawyers called Helena with a new message. They wanted to settle. No restrictions on our business, no admission of wrongdoing from either side. Just a mutual agreement to drop all claims and move forward. Why now? I asked Helena. Because they're losing in the court of public opinion. Because our counterclaim for defamation is stronger than they anticipated. And because you've proven you're not going away. I thought about it for exactly 5 seconds. Accept the settlement. Really? Just like that? I don't need a trial to prove I was right. I already proved it by building a successful firm despite their best efforts to stop me. Let them save face. We've got work to do. The settlement was finalized 3 weeks later. No money changed hands. Both sides agreed to dismiss all claims. It was as close to vindication as you could get without a jury verdict. That evening, I gathered the entire Catalyst team. All 25 people who joined our experiment in doing business differently. The lawsuit is over, I announced. We won. The office erupted in cheers. Someone popped champagne. Harper was crying. Even stoic Cameron was grinning. But this isn't the end, I continued once they'd quieted down. This is the beginning. We've proven that talent, integrity, and hard work can compete with corporate giants. Now we have to prove we can sustain it. Lydia raised her glass. To Catalyst. And to everyone who bet on themselves instead of waiting for permission. We all raised our glasses. To Catalyst. Later that night, after everyone had gone home, I stood alone in the office looking out at Singapore's skyline. The city glittered below, full of people building, creating, striving. My phone rang. "I saw the news," she said. "The lawsuit's over." "Yeah. We won." "I never doubted you would." Pause. "Your father would be so proud. You built something that matters." I thought about that. About foundations and structures that outlast their builders. About creating something that would give others opportunities they might not have had otherwise. "Thanks, Mom." "So what's next?" I looked around the office, at the desks filled with talented people, at the project boards covered with initiatives across 3 countries, at the future we were building together. "Now," I said, "we change the industry." 2 years after I'd seen that message on Elijah's phone, Catalyst Strategic Partners was a $50 million firm with 40 employees and operations across Southeast Asia. We'd completed 12 major infrastructure projects, mentored dozens of young professionals, and proven that there was another way to build a consulting firm. We weren't the biggest. We probably never would be. But we were ours, built on respect, transparency, and the belief that talent deserved recognition rather than exploitation. Chairman Tan sent me a message on Catalyst's 2nd anniversary. "You've done more than build a business. You've demonstrated that integrity and excellence can coexist with commercial success. Thank you for proving it's possible." That message sits framed in my office now next to a different quote. Not one someone sent me, but one I found during those dark early days. "The best revenge is massive success." People always focus on the revenge part. But I think they miss the point. It's not about revenge. It's about refusing to let someone else's opinion of your worth define your future. Helix Industries is still out there, still one of the big players in the consulting world. Elijah's still a senior partner. Graham's still They're successful by any conventional measure. But I'm not competing with them anymore. I'm building something different. Something that treats people like assets rather than expenses. Something where your work speaks louder than your politics. Sometimes late at night when I'm working on a proposal or reviewing a contract, I think about that moment in Bangkok. The notification on Elijah's phone. The casual cruelty of those words. "Fire Sienna the moment Singapore signs." They thought they were cutting me loose. They thought they were disposing of a problem. But they made a mistake. They forgot that people who build things from nothing, who create value where none existed before, who turn relationships into partnerships. Those people don't need someone else's company to succeed. They just need a chance to build their own. And sometimes, getting fired is exactly the chance you need. I close my laptop and look around the office one more time before heading home. Tomorrow we're pitching a major project in Jakarta. Next week we're opening our 4th office in Ho Chi Minh City. Next month, we're launching a mentorship program for women in infrastructure consulting. We're not just surviving. We're thriving. And it all started with a text message I wasn't supposed to see. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you turns out to be the best thing that could have happened. You just have to be brave enough to bet on yourself. I learned that lesson the hard way. But it was worth every terrifying moment. Because now, when young professionals ask me for advice, when they tell me they feel undervalued or overlooked, when they wonder if speaking up is worth the risk, I have an answer. I tell them about Catalyst. About starting with nothing but a contract and a belief that I deserved better. About the people who took a chance on an unproven firm because they'd been undervalued too. And I tell them the truth. The system isn't fair. Big firms will try to exploit you. They'll take your work and put someone else's name on it. They'll promise advancement and then find reasons to deny it. But you don't have to accept that. You can build something better. You can bet on yourself. You can prove that talent and integrity are worth more than politics and positioning. It won't be easy. There will be moments when you question everything, when the risk seems too great, when walking away seems smarter than fighting. But on the other side of that fear is freedom. The freedom to build something that reflects your values. The freedom to surround yourself with people who lift you up instead of holding you back. The freedom to define success on your own terms. That's what I found when I signed that deal under my own company name. Not just revenge. Not just success. Freedom. And once you've tasted that, you can never go back to accepting less than you deserve. That's the real story of Catalyst. Not a tale of corporate warfare or legal battles, though those happened. It's a story about choosing yourself when no one else will. About building the future you want instead of accepting the one you're given. They tried to fire me and erase me. Instead they freed me. And I built an empire.